Hello, everybody, and welcome. I am so glad to see you here, wherever you're joining us from. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. And please, if you're watching me, please put in the chat your name, where you're joining us from. I'd love to be able to engage in conversation with you as we go along today in Interracial Sisterhood. Where do we go from here? And I'm just going to add my from my computer upload file. I'm going to add my presentation to the deck. So please just tell us where you are joining us from and how you are doing on this fine Monday afternoon. Yes. Or maybe I could just present. Okay, let's see. Present. Okay, thank you for your patience as I get my file loaded up here. Here we go. Okay, you know what? Let me, instead of doing it that way, I'm going to share my screen. Hi, Colette. I see you here. Okay. Excellent. And let me just put this on to present. Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Joan, for being here. And thank you for your patience as I have some technical challenges here, but I am getting it together. Thank you all for being here. Okay, okay, now we just gotta get up to the beginning because we are at the end. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for your patience. Thanks for joining us from Oakland. Doing well and looking forward to this connection. I am so delighted, y'all. My mentor, my dear friend, my biggest source of clients, Colette Lucky, is here, and I'm just so delighted. She's always traveling, so it's hard for her to be able to join. Gina Sheets is joining us. Gina came to the most recent Interracial Sisterhood retreat. We have Michelle. Hi, Michelle, joining us from Barbados. I'm so excited. Veronica, Joan, Washington State. There's an echo. Uh-oh. I don't know what is causing the echo. Is everybody else hearing an echo too? San Francisco, New Jersey. Is anyone else experiencing an echo? And I am sorry about that if you are experiencing an echo. Let me see if there is something I can do to troubleshoot the audio. Okay. Waterloo, Canada. Thank you for being here. Okay, my camera is this, but what is my audio? My audio, you know what? Echo cancellation is turned on. Um, does does that help? No echo is here. Okay, no echo. Okay. And I turned off. Oh, it just stopped. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for your patience. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here, Rachel Clark, who's helped me so much recently to get myself motivated and aligned for 2025. I am just so grateful to all of you for making time for this very important conversation. Interracial sisterhood, where do we go from here? Now how do I advance the slide in this thing? Okay, let's see. Okay, I am your facilitator, Karen Fleshman. I'm the founder of Racy Conversations and of the Interracial Sisterhood Coalition, and I'll be sharing a little bit more about who I am as we go along. But I really appreciate all the wonderful people who have joined us here today. This is what we're going to do over the course of our time together. We're going to begin with some acknowledgments. We'll do a temperature check. We'll talk a little bit about the time we are in and why hope is needed and why interracial sisterhood community is needed right now. And so I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement. And this is a photo that was just taken on the day known as Thanksgiving, that some folks refer to as Thanksgiving, here in San Francisco. This is on Alcatraz, where every year since 1979, the Native community of the Bay Area and really from around the country have come together to commemorate the occupation of Alcatraz that was led by Native people from all over the country, came to Alcatraz and really held space to demand that the US government sell them the island of Alcatraz for some cloth and some beads, and to point out to everyone the contradiction, that Alcatraz is very much like Native American reservations. It's a place without arable land. It's a place without water. It's a place without any source of employment. And it's just so this ceremony is very, very moving. And as we think about how we move forward, I really think we need to move beyond land acknowledgement to land back, to giving our Native people their land back, the original stewards of this land. That is how we are going to survive. That is how we are going to thrive, because they know how to take care of the land and all the life that emanates from it. I'd also like to do a labor acknowledgement. You know, so the rights that I have benefited from all my life, the right to a workplace free of gender discrimination, free of sexual harassment, those rights were fought through Black activists like Fannie Lou Hamer, Ella Baker, and that is why we are here today, and why so many of us who are joining today have had access to professional careers, to being able to buy a home, to go to college. All of these things were very hard fought battles, and we acknowledge that labor, and we continue that labor, and we learn from that labor how to create social change, how to engage the people who are most affected uh, by the challenges, to be the leaders of the struggle. And I think back to the very famous speech by Frederick Douglass when he talked about how without struggle, there is no progress, and that we can't wait. We can't wait for someone else to come in and fight our battles for us, because they're never coming. He said in that speech that power concedes nothing without a demand. And so we who believe in freedom, we who want our freedom, are going to have to be at the forefront of fighting for it. Oh, yes. And thank you. Thank you for sharing where you're joining us from as well. And if anyone wants to put in the chat their land acknowledgement, their labor acknowledgement, who their heroes are, who their sheroes are, who we look up to, who are our guiding lights as we think about what we need to do to move forward at this terrible time, as well as on whose land we are currently residing and benefiting from. You can go ahead and put that into the chat. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And we also bear witness to the genocide in Gaza, in Congo, um, in Sudan, that we are in the midst of so much global turmoil and of global people resisting, and of real change in our society. I mean, just in the past week, we have South Korea rising up. We have insurrection in Georgia. We have the fall of Assad. I mean, we are living through a time of tremendous change. And we hold all of it. We hold all women all over the world in our hearts as they confront these changes. And we know that women are at risk, not only from at risk from wars and all kinds of conflict and financial deprivation, but we're also personally at risk of violence and are often the targets of violence in conflicts. And so we hold all these women in our hearts as we enter into this conversation tonight. And feel free to name in the chat if there's a particular group of women who you're holding in your heart as we begin this conversation tonight. So I would like us all to kind of revisit not only where we've been in the past month, but over the past year. I mean, when I myself reflect on 2024, as I've been doing to close out the year, I look back at the early part of 2024, and I think I was actually in a state of depression, as I've never felt in my life. I've always been a very optimistic, very hopeful person. You know, some people accuse me of being Pollyannish, but I believe it's my Aquarius nature. Like, I am a visionary. I see the big picture. I want justice for the world. I want to see social change happen. I can see it in my head, that, you know, I can see it, what needs to happen. And so at the beginning of 2024, and please put in the chat if this is true for you. Oh, thank you. I see the land acknowledgements coming in. The I'm participating from the land of the Squaxin Island tribe of the Seven Inlets Stay Chas. Someone says she's holding women in Syria, especially those who were imprisoned, in their heart. Yes, thank you so much for acknowledging. There's just so much happening with women in our world right now. But coming back to the temperature check, and you know, and part of it was just seeing all those images of those babies in Gaza, and you know, participating in protests here, also seeing the brutality with which they were quelling. The United States was quelling those protests. The students, you know, I myself am an alumna of the University of Texas. So when I saw those images of the horses and just the brutality that was inflicted on those University of Texas students, it just crushed me. And I had this deep-seated feeling, this deep fear, um, that Joe Biden was going to lose the 2024 election. Um, and yet I felt like I couldn't say anything. I couldn't speak up and say, "Hey, this we really got to change the candidate here. Like, we can't go forward with this. We need someone who can win," you know, because I somehow got bought into that idea that he was the safest candidate. And I don't know if anyone else can reflect back over the course of this year and how you were feeling in the beginning half of this year. And then, we had that disastrous debate, and then all of a sudden, whew, there could be an opportunity for a shift. It was just, so that moment when it was announced, when Joe Biden announced that he was stepping down and Kamala Harris was stepping up. Does everybody remember where you were when that was announced? And I can share where I was. So that was actually on the last Sunday, the day after the July Interracial Sisterhood retreat. And we had this wonderful retreat with 30 women, diverse across every dimension, all different parts of the country, um, different ages, races, professions, classes, just outlook on life. It was amazing. They ranged in age from their 20s to their 80s. It was a beautiful experience. And so we had been together Thursday, Friday, and Saturday and said farewell on Saturday night. And Sunday morning, I was driving to pick up Rosie Kennedy, the wonderful co-facilitator, and as I was turning the corner to uh to pick her up at the hotel, that was when the announcement came on the radio, and I just felt this incredible elation. Like, I just felt like the sky parted and like hope shone in. And I don't know if anyone else remembers where they were at that moment or that hope that they felt at that moment. I would love to hear from you in the chat. Oh, someone was saying I was at the Interracial Sisterhood retreat. Yay. Yes. Thank you. Yes. And how did you feel at that moment? And and Colette says, my heart leapt when it was announced, and I was lifted so high. I felt like I was levitating. I felt the same way, Colette. I felt the same way. Yes, other people felt that way too, right? We felt, and maybe there are some people, and I want to honor that too. There may be some people on this live who did not feel that way, who did not feel that hopeful feeling at that moment. And if that's you, that's totally fine. I understand. I'd like you to think back to a time when you did feel a tremendous amount of hope. I want you to think about a time when you did feel a tremendous amount of hope. And is there anyone else who wants to share where they were at that moment? Michelle Simmons. Yay! Yay, Michelle. Thank you so much for being here, Michelle. Michelle was at the Interracial Sisterhood retreat, as was Jana. Thank you so much for being here. Michelle says, I felt so happy, like I could see a light at the end of a tunnel, right? That's exactly how I felt. And then just all the energy that we then expended for the next 100 days. What were some things that people were doing? What were some activities that you engaged in? Were any of you on those mass Zoom calls, that mass Zoom call. I think it was the week after or a few days after it was announced, there was a Zoom call with tens of thousands of Black women. There were calls with white women, there were white dudes for hair. I mean, and then all the volunteer stuff too, right? Was anybody here volunteering or donating, or how did you then get engaged? I myself was knocking a lot of doors. It was just, I felt like I kept saying this. I felt like that movie, The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, and it was like the Who's down in Whoville, because everybody was so kind to each other, and we were all engaged in this activity so cheerfully, knocking doors, making phone calls, whatever it was we were doing. Um, Michelle Eiffel says, I was shocked, elated, and so happy, and was on stage hosting my Harvard Law School Black Alumni annual tea in New York City. Oh my gosh, Michelle, I cannot imagine the energy in that room. Harvard Law School Black alumni all together on that Sunday morning when it was announced that Kamala Harris was our president, was our candidate for president. Yes. And I don't know about y'all, but I was a believer. I was a like, it was inconceivable to me that she could lose. I mean, I knew that the polls were tight and everything, but I just saw all that activity and all that goodwill and those rallies that were packed, and just all the joy that surrounded her campaign. And this is what I want to share with us, because then we had uh, that huge crash, um, when it turned out that she did not win. And it was not a landslide by any stretch of the imagination. It's really only 1.5% of the popular vote. But it is devastating to think of the other side winning not only the presidency, but also control of the Senate and control of the House of Representatives. And they control the Supreme Court and much of the judiciary as well. And I think my main message that I want to impart today is we have to hold on to that hope, because the day after November 6th, 2024, is the first day of the 2028 presidential election, right? And trust, our opponents are seeing it that way. Our opponents are already gearing up for 2028 and what they are going to do. And I just want us all to remember that we are actually the majority. The majority of the people in this country, 77 million people voted for Joe Biden in 2020, right? And that's the largest number of people who've ever voted for any presidential candidate. And we can do it again. We can do it again. And we lost not to the opponent. Not that many people crossed over and voted for the opponent, but we lost to the couch. We lost to people who were not participating at all. And Michelle, yes, that crash has been hard. I myself, just despondent, like not wanting to get out of bed, not wanting to take a shower, just feeling so dispirited. Colette, we are in a collective trauma over the outcome, and I still haven't recovered. That's exactly it. When is there time to recover? When is there time to recover when we have, work to do, we have appointments to keep, we have to take our kids to their soccer game, we have all this stuff to do, and then we're now getting bombarded by all this bad news. Joan, the trauma is real. Yes, 100%. And the danger that we are in is real too, right? Any further comments on the temperature check? Um, I just like to share a little bit about who I am, if that's okay. Um, I am someone who throughout my life has brought the fight to the opponent. So the picture of me over on the left is from 1980. I'm 11 years old, and in the small town I grew up in Colorado, the conservative parents organized, and they were trying to get Judy Blume books banned from our school library. And so I went, I in my elementary school, I got a petition and I started collecting signatures of my fellow students. I even got some teachers to sign on. And then I took my petition and I presented it at the school board when I was 11 years old, and I made an impassioned speech about why we needed Judy Blume books to stay in our school. And lo and behold, they voted to keep them. So, as the headline says, board reshelves Blume books. And Judy Blume sent me a wonderful letter and copy of my favorite Judy Blume book, autographed by her. The governor of Colorado sent me a letter. It was like a very momentous time in my life. And the picture on the right is me at the Supreme Court confirmation hearing of Brett Kavanaugh, and that's in the Senate Judiciary Committee on the first day of the hearing. And as you can see, I'm up out of my seat yelling at the Senate Judiciary Committee, "This is a sham." And then I was subsequently arrested for the first time. So I'm going to share a couple other pictures as well on the next slide. But the picture on the top left here is the day 10 years ago, right at this time. And I believe she may be joining the call as well. She signed up to come. Karen Adelor, if you're here, please say hi. This is me and Karen Adelor and Dom Jones having brunch in Oakland. And this is a few days after in 2014 when Darren Wilson wasn't indicted for killing Mike Brown. And Ferguson changed my life. Mike Brown changed my life. I seeing the Ferguson protests, I got out and I started becoming a Black Lives Matter protester, and I started getting involved. And I came to see that racism is the underlying problem in our society. And I started, that's when I started Racy Conversations. And then in 2017, when I saw that 53% of white women had voted for Donald Trump, that's when I started organizing Interracial Sisterhood events. So you can see this one on the right. That's from when we were in Brooklyn. I don't know when that was, maybe 2018, 2019. And down here on the bottom, this is our most recent Interracial Sisterhood retreat in July of 2022. So I'm sharing these photos because I think one of the ways that we can hold on to the hope. Oh, thank you. 11 going on 30. Hello. Oh, thank you so much. Yes, good trouble. Listen, okay, this is the next point I want to make, y'all, is the way we hold on to the hope the way we build to not only 2028, but also to 2026, the midterm elections, is through collective action. It is through community. And I want you to think about, as terrible as that first Trump uh time in office was, I want you to think about ways you might have grown, ways you might have done something that made you intensely uncomfortable that you had never done before because you were committed to protest. You were committed to um not letting hate and division become our reality, right? So what are some things that people did during that first Trump administration that gave them hope? That where were some times when you found courage? I mean, like I said, I was there at that Senate Judiciary Committee, but I had only ever been arrested one time before. Even though I've been protesting my whole life, I was not arrested until I went to that mass um, protest of family separation that was organized by the Women's March in Washington, D.C. And there were like 500 of us got arrested on that day. And I met sisters. I met people from all over the country, different ages, races, uh, different faiths, all kinds of things. Same thing at Kavanaugh, right? We were wandering. This was before anyone had heard of Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. We were wandering the halls of the Senate, talking to senators about why we did not want them to confirm him and sharing our stories of our own sexual assault experiences and things that we had gone through. And that was like the first time I ever started even recognizing myself really as a sexual assault survivor, because I kind of um I had blocked it out. That's a thing that trauma survivors do. So if you feel okay sharing in the chat, and I totally understand that people don't want to publicly, out themselves, that's fine. Just in your head, I want you to think about what were some things you did, what were some ways that you grew, and how we can continue that energy in this next struggle. Okay, because I do think it is going to look different. The way we are going to struggle in this second Trump presidency is not the same way we did in the first one. In the first one, we did a lot of mass mobilizations, and those are wonderful. I'm glad that we did that. And we did some wonderful things like going to the airport to protect Muslims who were having difficulty entering due to the Muslim ban. Those are those are some great actions. But I think in this next term, we're going to have to do we're going to have to really bring the struggle to the opponent, right? And I think that here's where we're going to learn a lot from the civil rights movement. What were some of the things that they were doing? They were doing boycotts. They were doing strikes. Okay, they were doing things that hurt the pocketbook. Okay, same thing. We're going to need to, for the companies that are profiting and supporting this, we're going to need to hold them to account. Okay, and so it's going to be different from everybody just go march. It's going to require a different level of organization, and we're also going to need to be tighter in our communities. And a lot of that we need to have, not through online, um, not online organizing, but in real face to face conversations. Uh, Does anybody feel the same way? What are you all thinking about the way we're going to bring the struggle to the opponent in this second term? Okay, I'm going to take that down. And let's not make any uh the time we are in is there's a lot of danger out there. And I also believe that there is a reason why each of us are living in this time. There is a reason why we are here. I mean, first of all, we are all miracles that we survived everything our ancestors experienced for us to even be here right now. And we carry within us their survival techniques, their strategies, and most of all, their hopes for us. And we carry within us our hopes for future generations, and that they will not have to experience the trauma that we are experiencing right now. I became aware of the need to be vulnerable for the greater cause and to lean into micro activism. Not and let me be clear about this. I'm not saying that everybody who is an activist has to show up for protests and get arrested and disrupt hearings and stuff like that. There are so many ways that we can be activists, including cultural activists, including joyful activists, including faith based activism. Everything that we can do to elevate our vibration, to bring joy, to be healthy, to be surrounded by beauty, to be out in nature, all of that is necessary and good. And we're going to need people, same thing like with the civil rights movement. There were the people who were out there getting arrested and beaten by dogs, and there were the people who were fundraising, and there were the celebrities who were publicizing it, and there were the journalists and the authors who were writing about it, and the playwrights and the filmmakers who were, you know what I mean? Like, we all have a role in doing this. And so recognizing what those gifts are. Veronica says, my gift is in writing and teaching. That's it. We all have within us a gift that is needed at this time, in the time we are in. And let's talk a little bit about the time we are in, my friends. Okay, now my slide does not want to. Okay, you know what? Maybe it's okay. Okay, so let me just take a pause for everyone to reflect on this slide and just how does this make you feel? And I'd like to hear from Black women first. When you saw this, how did it make you feel? And in case it's too small for people to see, this is the exit polls from 2024, where it says what percent of white men, white women, 60% of white men, 53% of white women, 21% of Black men, 7% of Black women, 34% of Latino men. I'm sorry, no, that's more. 54% of Latino men, 35% of Latina women, and 47% of all other races. And I apologize that it's not broken out by Asian American and Native American on this. But I'd just like to hear, did anyone have some reactions when they saw this? And I'd like to hear from Black women, their reaction first. Is there anyone who wants to say something? I will share something. Oh, as a resource mobilizer, I think we're going to have to focus on motivating white folks to share and live their values today versus growing and hoarding wealth for the future. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Linda. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry, I did not realize that was being shared by a white woman. But yes, eh, let's hear uh, betrayal. Betrayal, right? uh my Rosie Kennedy shared with me, and I don't know the exact source of it, but she saw it posted on link on social media. They said they were allying. Turns out they were all lying. These exit polls are hard to take. Veronica says, I wasn't surprised. I just said that we know what we are working with and to have some compassion towards the conditions of what I know some people live under. Thank you, Veronica. I mean, it's hard, when you look at this, it is hard to have compassion. And I know that love is the only way, love is the only answer, right? Um, what did Martin Luther King say? Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can drive out hate. And I will say from my own experience knocking doors, you know, for the vast majority of the people that I talk to, uh, the economy, specifically jobs and cost of living, was what was top of mind for them in this election. And they were really struggling, y'all. In Arizona, it's been over 100 degrees for 3 months straight. People's utility bills are through the roof. People can't afford to move out and get their own apartment. People are having difficulty uh, putting food on the table. I looked at the psychology of what was behind the choices. And I will also say, Veronica, there was a lot of misinformation and disinformation from the opponent, from outside interests. So much money spent. I saw that Elon Musk spent $260 million. Does anyone remember the white Colette? Yes, I do remember. So in the exit polls from 2016, it said 53% of white women voted for him. But when they did the actual voter analysis, which takes some time, it takes longer, and the exit polls is always just a smaller group that they are polling. But when they looked at the overall statistics on the entire electorate, it turned out to be 47%. But it has been consistent since the 1950s. There's only been two presidential elections in which the majority of white women voted for the Democrat, and that was Bill Clinton and Lyndon Baines Johnson. Yeah, so the third presidential election in a row where the majority of white women vote for Donald Trump. I will say the majority of college educated white women voted for Kamala, but the majority of high school educated white women voted for, um, so that I could get an understanding of how certain individuals can get caught up in being led astray. Veronica, thank you for that point. And as a white woman myself, I think that white women, for hundreds of years, we have been conditioned to believe that if we align ourselves with the most violent, become violent ourselves, that we will be protected from violence. And I think that is what drives a lot of this voting behavior. That we think that it is in our self interest to preserve the benefits of whiteness for our family, and that, yeah, that is what is most important, and that we're going to be safer, even though we know we will actually be subjected to even more violence. Sexism and racism dictated this election. All of the other ancillaries, like electric, food, jobs, etc., were minor, in my humble opinion. And I agree with that 100%, Colette. I'm just saying what people were verbalizing, but I think that in our heads, we have an image of what a president looks like, right? And it certainly does not look like a Black South Asian American woman. You know, that is a very strong image. And the whole idea of having a Black woman in the most high position in society is extremely threatening to many, 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 many people. I grew up in Mississippi, so my experience with racial divides must have prepared me for this time as an adult in my mid 50s. Wow. Okay, I think fear drives white women voting. Yes. Help me understand that. What is the fear? It's the fear of loss. The fear of, oh, if more people get equal rights, I'm going to lose something. It doesn't even look like a white woman. It doesn't even look like a white woman, right? Oh my gosh. Yes. Ah, so much work to do, y'all. So much work to do. Um, so I want to highlight this quote from Latasha Brown. Um, and I I've heard similar comments with from other Black women activists. America is going to have to save herself. Everyone knows who Latasha Brown is. She's the co-founder of the national voting rights group Black Voters Matter. She literally has a giant bus and she goes out traveling throughout the South, organizing people, registering them to vote. I mean, she is really responsible for us getting the two Democratic senators from from Georgia. That was a lot of her work. She's just an extraordinary person, teaches at Harvard. But this quote from her: America is going to have to save herself, said Latasha Brown, co-founder of the national voting rights group Black Voters Matter. She compared Black women's presence in social justice movements as core strategists and core organizers to the North Star, known as the most consistent and dependable star in the galaxy because of its seemingly fixed position in the sky. People can rely on Black women to lead change, Brown said, but the next 4 years will look different. That's not a uh, that's not a Herculean task that's for us. We don't want that title. I have no goals to be a martyr for a nation that cares nothing about me. Just sit with that quote for a minute. And if you have any reactions, please put it in the chat. Mm. And the conversation about white women, it Colette says it doesn't even look like a white woman, even to white women. Um, uh, and white women also fear white men, right? How many of us, you know, we get fed this lie that we should be scared of the predatory, dangerous Black men, uh, when in fact we are much more likely to be assaulted by someone we know. I mean, my sexual assault was by a popular athlete in my high school that I knew. And that is true of sexual assault across the board. It is much more likely to be a Brett Kavanaugh type situation than some stranger. So yes, fear definitely driving a lot of behavior. We see this. I understand deeply what Latasha Brown is saying. Unfortunately, each generation has to fight for its freedom. We need a break and a breather, but I don't think we have the luxury to sit it out, in my opinion. Yes. But can we as women unite and give Black women the support, show up for Black women, resource Black women, listen to, follow, support, and not microaggress and harm Black women? Because it is true they are the North Star, but they can't be out there being the North Star and there's no one around following them, right? We have to show up, y'all. We have to show up. I told my husband that Caucasians will need to stand up to each other to shift the divide. 100%, Veronica. 100%. And I really I encourage people. I'm part of Showing Up for Racial Justice. We are doing this wonderful work of engaging white people in the struggle for multiracial democracy. It is going to take white people showing up to white people. And it's also going to take multiracial coalition building, right? We have to be together. We have to fight alongside each other. Economic and labor activism is so important. Yes. And thanks, y'all. We're going a little long here, but this is a juicy conversation. And let's make no mistake about it. Okay, we are in dangerous times. We have a bill that's already introduced into Congress, now introduced into the Senate, the Defining Male and Female Act of 2024, that's making it's basically outlawing trans people. It's making it that define what is a male and what is a female is someone who can produce eggs and someone who can produce sperm at birth, and never the twain shall meet. And tucked in there is also gender roles. I mean, literally, they want to legislate our identity, they want to legislate every aspect of our body, and they're putting people in positions of power. You know, this is the nominee to be Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who has Nazi tattoos and is a white nationalist accused of rape. And they're saying, oh, make the accuser come forward and put her on trial. That is their strategy to get him confirmed. They are going brass knuckles to get him confirmed, y'all. It is really, really serious. An entire cabinet full of sexual predators. What is that going to do to our society? This is a very dangerous time for women, all women, and particularly the Black women who've been on the front lines holding 47 to account, the trans women, the immigrant women. You know, there are many women who are experiencing tremendous, tremendous vulnerability right now. And this is why interracial sisterhood is so very needed. Even his mother despises him. Yes, Colette, yes. It is truly, truly sickening, y'all. It is truly sickening. And it is not inevitable. It is not the end of the story. This is our country too, y'all. This is, I am not giving up. I am not sitting down and letting these people just, no, 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 no. They are not the deciders, right? This whole idea that we're going to have this small group of extremely wealthy, powerful people controlling everybody else is just, no, that's not who we are. We are a freedom loving people. And this is why, as more and more people are directly impacted by this, we have to organize with them, because we can't make them then blame it on the immigrants, blame it on the Black people, why they are suffering. No, we have to share who is causing the suffering is this small group of very, very wealthy, powerful people. Sisterhood and friendship is the answer. We can't fight hate with hate. 100%, y'all. 100%. Relationship building is so important, and also the vibe that we maintain. And I'm sharing here this wonderful diagram. It's a little bit small. I hope you can see it. This is the cycle of socialization. It's developed by a woman named Bobby Harrow. This was developed in the 80s and 90s. And it's how we get stuck in this circle of socialization. And you see in the center is fear, ignorance, confusion, and insecurity. Okay? That is exactly what fascists want us to feel. They want us to feel afraid. They want us to feel like we don't know what to do. They want to confuse us and bombard us with all of this information, and we can't tell what's fact or fiction. And most of all, they don't want us to trust ourselves or to trust each other, right? And you see how this cycle begins at birth, and this is like from the perspective of a privileged person, right? It can also be true of everyone, but in this case, how do we wind up just kind of perpetuating our privilege? We're born into a world with mechanics in place. We don't have any blame. We don't have consciousness. We don't have any guilt. We don't have any choice, but we have limited information, no information, or misinformation, which leads to bias, stereotypes, prejudice. Then we are socialized over time, reinforced by bombarded message from institutions and culture, enforced, sanctioned, stigmatized, also granted privileges and power, resulting in dissonance, silence, anger, dehumanization, guilt, collusion, ignorance, self hatred. How many has felt self hatred since this election result? I will be the first to say. And then we just numb out. Okay? If we do nothing, this cycle just keeps perpetuating and perpetuating. But there is an off ramp. The off ramp is when we change, raise our consciousness, interrupt, educate, take a stand, question, and reframe. And that is exactly where we land in the cycle of liberation. Okay? The cycle of liberation, at the center of the cycle of liberation is self love, self esteem, balance, joy, support, security, and a spiritual base. And so, as we experience the off ramp and we start to empower ourselves and we start to gain inspiration and authenticity and dismantle our collusion, then we move out of self toward others. We work with others. We organize. We take action. Y'all, action gives us more courage. Action gives us more hope. Well, when we take action, that's when we learn. And that's how we start to critically transform institutions and create new culture. And this is exactly why then we're spreading hope. We become inspiration to others. Others see, oh, I don't have to be stuck in this dismal cycle of hatred. I can break out and be part of the cycle of liberation too. And the most beautiful thing about this is that these are all things that you and me can do. We don't have to wait for somebody to come in. Yes, where are the white Republican college educated women? Why do they allow Nazi sexual woman? Those white Republican, I mean, even Joni Ernst, right? Joni Ernst, the senator from Iowa, she is herself a sexual assault survivor, and she served in the military, right? And she is saying she has qualms about Pete Hegseth, but they're going after her. They are going to primary her. So where is their courage to hold their party to account? We talked about fear, and fear is driving fear because everyone has some fear. So we need to put fear in perspective and dismantle the weaponization of fear. Thank you, Veronica. It is natural to feel afraid. It is natural. Fear is a normal part of life, right? But we can't let fear control us. And we can also open ourselves to new experiences that cause us to diminish our fear. New relationships. When we build relationships across difference and we realize we've been taught all these lies about the other, right? I can say from my experience as a white person, and Colette and I always laugh about it. Yes. And this is exactly why they are coming up against this new society of humans rather than homogenous communities. Yes. They're going to hit San Francisco, they're going to hit the Bay Area hard, right? Um but we have to break out of our own isolated social circles and develop those relationships across difference. That is when the fear dissipates. That is when the hope grows. That is when the courage grows from listening to each other's stories and learning community. Yes, that is when we start to feel accountability, when we show up for each other, right? When we listen to each other, when we comfort each other and take care of each other. This is how we build community. Privileged people hurt people too. Yes. Privileged people hurt people too. Yes. I agree definitely. And I always say it, hurt people, healing people, heal people. Okay, I'm coming up on my soccer time. I'm coming up on my soccer driving duties. Yes, I am a white woman named Karen, and I am a soccer mom. So so this is what the invitation is, y'all. The invitation is to our Project 2025, right? Um, our Project 2025 is to form interracial sisterhood. I've realized I have been playing small, like hosting these little events. And yes, when I look on Eventbrite, 1,600 people have come to my interracial sisterhood event since 2017. But that is not enough. There's 3,000 counties in the United States. I want to see an interracial sisterhood circle in every single county. This is how imagine if there's like 10 women in each county, like 5 women of color, 5 white women who come together and say, we are going to show up for each other. And whatever it is, if they're trying to ban books from the library, if they're raiding, workplaces and trying to round up immigrants, we are going to show up. We are going to be there for each other and for our community. And that is what the invitation is, y'all. To join me, I'm going to be launching an online interracial sisterhood um, network. It's going to be off of social media. It's going to be on a private network. And we're going to be accepting people by application, the same we do at the interracial sisterhood retreats, because we need to vet and make sure that the people who are joining this are legitimate and not saboteurs and really want to build interracial sisterhood. But I want to see women all over the country uniting in their local communities. Let's stop just being behind the computer. Let's get together in person. Let's build trust with each other. And that's how we'll transform everything. And if that vision appeals to you, I have a wonderful thing, which is the the Interracial Sisterhood online community application, which for whatever reason I cannot currently log into. But I want you to DM me, and I will send it to you. If you DM me, I will send you the application because right now I'm rounding up leaders, the people who want to see this thing get started. We're going to launch in January, but I need a group who's going to help me to launch it, to help me, first of all, figure out what it should be like, and then help me to publicize it as we launch it. And I'm telling you, y'all, I am so pumped. I am so excited for this project because I know that when we bring women together, we can do anything. And I for one am not, I'm 55 years old, right? I've got a few more decades on this planet. I am not going to let, we've never had a truly interracial women's movement in this country. That's what I want to see happen in my lifetime. Okay, I have to go now. Thank you all for your thoughtful participation, and I will see you. Please DM me, and appreciate your time and your thoughtful comments. Okay, bye everybody.